Welcome, listeners. This is Sanjog Aul, your host, and the topic for conversation is perfect pairing enterprise resilience with workforce throughput. And I have with me Talvis Love. Talvis is the Senior Vice President, E-commerce and Enterprise Architecture, and the Chief Information Security Officer with Cardinal Health. Hi, Talvis. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
We picked this topic today since we saw a constant tussle between business and security leaders as well as users, where the business thinks security is cannibalizing workforce productivity, whereas security is trying to safeguard organizations' interests and its own mandate. So today's discussion is about how we can deliver on the promise of a simplified yet resilient enterprise while enhancing workforce productivity. So as a first question, Talvis, what do you think are the top concerns that business leaders and or users have with respect to lost or reduced workforce productivity, because of which you get this pushback?
I think you first have to start with kind of the context of security in general, of a life without security and a life with security. There's no mistaking that if you even look at physical security, when the times when we can go out and leave our house doors unlocked and car doors unlocked, that was easy. But comes a time when you have to lock the doors, and that's an extra step that you have to build into the process. And security does create, if you compare it to no security versus having some security, it does create additional steps and maybe some inefficiencies in the process that was existing prior to having security in place. So I think that's one of the biggest concerns from leaders that I talk to, is about not putting too many steps or overcomplicating the process that they already have in place and those operational impacts of doing that.
Now, when we say simplify, for a business users would actually mean no security. They'll say, allow me to do whatever I was doing, even though they recognize that there is value to put security, but then anything beyond what they are using or what they're comfortable with is seen as a little more complex. So is there a common definition that we can have within the organization to say, this is the simplification of your business workflows and the way you use your applications, but that simplification is not a relative thought, it's an absolute benchmark for this organization because of the security needs that an organization has? Because you, as a business user or leader, don't exist alone. You exist in the context and or work in the context of the organization's interests overall.
The way that you have to tackle that is using risk as the measuring stick, and risk in all contexts. So you have financial risk, operational risk, and now you have information security or cyber risk that you have to manage as a part of your business. And in doing so, understand what that is and what that risk level is and what processes that impacts some businesses. So for example, I worked in a bank prior to coming to Cardinal Health. There was a much higher risk across all the processes that we had in place. So the information security was embedded into everything that we did. And if we didn't adhere to those security standards, or if we were breached, for example, it had a significant impact on our business. And other businesses, it's not the case. So across all their processes. So you have to make sure you have a very good understanding of what your business processes are, what your operational and cyber risk you're managing to, if we do, and then have those processes modified or implemented from an information security standpoint in accordance with that risk level. And it's a kind of an inherent risk to the industry and business that you're in. And then there are also risk appetites within the company itself, within that industry, that you have to measure up to. You need to be able to talk to and explain to the business team in that context, and also understand that business risk that they're undertaking and then how best to mitigate it.
So we are expecting, as security leaders, for the business users and leaders to recognize that the business is at risk or can be at risk if they don't abide by some of the rules and regulations. At the same time, how much of that appreciation is reciprocated by the security leaders so that we do not say, okay, we have to secure it at all costs. The business users and the leaders who are trying to move the business forward, they are not unnecessarily getting their creativity stifled or their productivity undermined as a result of us pushing our agenda. So is there a meeting of the minds, or each party says, okay, let me see how much leverage can I have over the other?
There has to be a meeting of the mind, or it's just from a security professional standpoint, you can't run a security program in the company outside of the constraints or outside of the business context that you're working within. You have to, in order to be effective, you can come in and do a number of different things and try to do them by mandate and drive change by fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But in most businesses, that's only going to get you so far. You really have to understand the context of that business, the risks that is going up, that is impacting it, and then design the program and the mitigations that best meets those issues that business has to address. And you have to understand the business, you have to understand how it works and how it makes money and how it doesn't, and what the impact of not meeting certain kind of risk levels has on that business.
So we want the security implementations to be simple. And we also want to make sure they are almost invisible and non-intrusive. And even to take it to the next level, or even think that security can in fact enhance workforce productivity. Is this like pie in the sky and a Star Trek version of security we are talking, or we can get real about this?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a very realistic goal to set, and it's a goal that we should have. Whether we'll reach that goal ultimately completely is a different question, but it's definitely a goal that we should have. Particularly one from a kind of reducing product or increasing productivity standpoint, because you have to weigh that against, right? If you're in the business where you don't have the appropriate controls and security and something bad happens, what's the likelihood of something bad happens? And when it happens, what's the productivity impact of that versus having the controls in place and nothing bad happening? And then what the productivity impact of that is. So comparing those things gets you to an apple-to-apples comparison of really what the true productivity hit is of and implementing the right controls in place. Then on the other side of it is you have to really make sure you measure, again, going back, understanding the operations. One of the things that we do, right, if we walk through and for the various controls that we put in place in the environment, security measures and metrics that we manage, we tie them to the operational metrics that we have to make sure that we are achieving both the operational goals that we have as well as the security goals embedded within them.
What do you say about the culture? So would you say, yeah, you could have technology solutions, but do you think culture to some degree is responsible for this tussle between workforce productivity and security?
Culture is the most important aspect from my perspective. Making sure you have a culture of awareness of the risk to the business, the cyber risk and the other ones, making sure that you really educate the entire organization around running the business in a way that is not just effective from a profitability standpoint, but it ensures that you maintain your profitability, that you don't have security incidents that eat into your profitability is key. And if people don't believe that or don't think that's the case, then of course they're going to push back significantly on any security controls that you're trying to put in place in order to safeguard against it. So I think that's one of the most important levers. We spend in terms of our program a significant portion of our time on education and awareness and training of the population, the broad population across Cardinal Health, and then we have very specific training for those areas that are the most highest risk, so people in finance and even folks that are in IT as well, that have high privileges to be able to access systems and administrator account.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages and discuss about the balance, the level of balance or the type of balance that is acceptable to the business leaders and users when it comes to security versus workforce productivity. And in case we are looking to strike that balance, what are we attempting? What are different things that we have attempted? What's hindsight 2020? Let's stay tuned. Listeners, we'll be right back and explore.
Your growing business needs a highly productive workforce, effectively communicating and collaborating without exposing corporate data to cyber attacks. Are you looking to balance security and workforce productivity? Move beyond short-term measures and securely scale your business with BlackBerry Enterprise Mobility Management Solutions. To learn more, please visit blackberry.com/enterprise. This is CTN Viewpoint on CIO Talk Network.
Welcome back, listeners. So, Talvis, the question here is the balance. What's the acceptable level of balance that we could have, which is being seen by business leaders and users in such a way so that they will embrace security in the interest of that, at least maintaining or enhancing the workforce productivity? And if at all there is one definition which we have arrived at, what is it that we have to do to get to that level of balance? Because that is just, what we said theoretically, but we have to implement it.
Yeah. And I'm going to go back, and so this is going to be a beating drum for me around business risk and making sure you understand it. I think that's really where you find the balance and the way by which you do it. So what I've done in the past, and what I've also talked to colleagues, and it seems to work effective for a number of different businesses as well, is establish a cyber risk committee, or make it a part of your enterprise risk management program, where you pull all the leaders, the operational leaders around the company together and put focus on cyber risk. And part of that is helping them to understand. So we have agendas about what are the risks in the environment, speaking to them in business terms of how they impact their operations, and then have conversations about, okay, if this were to happen to us, what would be the impact to our operation? And then drive that down to solution for mitigating those risks in the environment. And then have those people that are part of that steering committee take that back to their business unit from a business leadership perspective and really drive that into the operating changes or the tooling that we need to put in place, or to train to use that tooling in order to mitigate that risk. I find that to be very effective in getting, one, ensuring that you have the right understanding of the risk in the environment, and then two, getting the buy-in to mitigate that through the operations, the business operations change, and the IT change as well for mitigating that risk.
All right, Talvis. So what type of enterprise security solutions are needed for this perfect pairing we're talking about all along? And what do you think is missing?
I think one of the things that is desperately missing, a perfect digital identity. And by that, when we identify ourselves physically, right, we know I'm Talvis, is you, and whomever. Digitally, though, we have various digital identities across enterprise systems in some cases. In some organizations, you may have multiple identities in terms of having one set of passwords to log into one set of systems, another set of passwords to log into another set of systems. So then you take that into your personal life and the various websites and online banking, et cetera, that you have to do in your personal life. And there's another set of identities and passwords associated with those identities. If we are able, and I believe the technology will get there, it's just not there yet. But having one perfect digital identity, just like your perfect physical identity, to be able to track across both enterprise and your personal life, will make the integration of security so much easier and so much more seamless for employees, for corporations, as well as in your personal life as well. So I think that's where we have to get to be able to have a true seamless, and as you call it, the perfect pairing of security with productivity in your personal life and productivity in your work life.
So if we have that solution, the one which you just mentioned, is that the only thing you need, or what other portfolio elements would you think you would need as part of the enterprise security solution set?
No, I think it's a foundational component. You still need all of your customary protections and mitigations that you need to have in an enterprise environment, your firewalls, et cetera, that you need to put in place. But I think having this foundational piece allows those other components to be much more effective than they are today.
And as we know that we would have a sense of understanding of what the balance is, and as an organization, if everything was to remain constant and we have a sense of equilibrium, then we can say, okay, this is the state which we have to manage. And for this state, we could strike a balance, a perfect balance between security and workforce productivity. But guess what? We have business undergoing constant change. And we have IT and IT security changing as well. So how do you change the tires of a moving car?
Yeah, you just have to do it. I know that's not the right answer, but you have to keep a pulse on the changes of the business. You can't have security sitting outside of the business. It has to be embedded in it, however you choose to do it, whether you do it with having a lot of companies have business information security representatives that's sitting within the business units, Others have other kind of privacy officers, and et cetera, that matrix into a central organization or matrix into the security organization to do that. You have to maintain a very close, ongoing, constant working relationship with the business teams. So one of the ways that I've done it in the past, and actually one of the ways we do it now here at Cardinal Health, is that we have representatives from the security team that sit with the segment, what we call our segments. So we have two major business segments, and then we also have kind of major functional segments. So like things like the finance, HR, and et cetera. And then the business segment will be a pharmaceutical business, and medical business segment. I have representatives from the information security and technology risk management team, my central team, that sit in those staff meetings. They understand the strategies. They go to the business meetings as well. And then they bring that back in terms of the portfolio and the things that we need to implement centrally across the organization. And then they take forward those policies and procedures that apply to those segments and those business units. And they are integrated into those teams.
So with that said, whatever you've just suggested, if you were to leave a message for the leaders, whether you talk on the business side for the business leaders who are trying to make sure their respective teams have the maximum productivity and throughput in terms of workforce, and then you're talking about security leaders who are trying to make sure that they are able to strike a good balance so that they are still seen with respect and invited to help the organizations enhance their workforce productivity. What would you leave them with? What would be the top messages from you to those both constituents?
The work will never be done, right? Security isn't stuff that you make a one-time investment in and then you're done. It's always going to change and evolve, just like the business is always going to change and evolve. So therefore, you have to make sure that the security team understands the, and then the business is willing to work with the security team to help them to understand this. And then as we put solutions in place from a security standpoint, we do so in the business context of the business that we're serving, right? So that we, the information security professionals, have to learn how to talk and be able to convey the benefits of security in a way that is meaningful to the business and that they can understand the value of it. The business has to understand cybersecurity is a risk that they have to manage. They have to own it and they have to manage it. And the information security professionals are there to help them.
Once again, thank you, Talvis, for sharing your thoughts and insights about how organizations can perfectly pair enterprise resilience with a workforce throughput and eventually get the most for all parties involved.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And listeners, I invite you to find related conversations on our website at ciotalknetwork.com/enterprise security.